First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedule to watch this webinar. We've had some very positive feedback on it. It's kind of interesting because there's so much detailed information that Howard does give during this presentation that it's surprising to see how many people we get that come back and view it multiple times to either review the information or as they're doing it to get different bits and pieces that they need for whatever given project they have going on. My name is Jason Spangler. I'm the flooring division manager here at Wagner Meters. I'm responsible for not only the Rapid RH and the concrete moisture testing side of things, but I'm also responsible for the small line of hand meters that we have in relationship to wood flooring, wood subfloors, things of that nature. Before we go any further, we are going to do a Q&A, so definitely if you have any questions, I'm going to get through as many of them as possible. If you have any questions, definitely email them so that we can see what they are and I can get to as many of them as possible. If after the fact, for whatever reason, you come up with some questions that you have or a project down the road that you have some issues with that you need some input on, don't hesitate to give me a call. Again, my name is Jason Spangler. The phone number is 800-634-9961 and it's extension 235. So with that, I'll start off with the questions. Looks like the first one we have is from Paul. It says, is there a way you can speed up the drying of concrete, well, let's say drying of the concrete? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways to expedite. Some of them are proven, some of them are not. There's a lot of people that say that the power troweling, or let me rephrase, the over power troweling of slabs has gotten a little bit out of hand. Obviously, power troweling is required to densify the surface of the concrete, but we get to a point where we actually over densify and burnish the surface. And a lot of people think that that really does impede the slab's natural ability to release moisture, because what you've done is you've burnished the surface, you've closed off or at least minimized the exposure of the capillary coming through the concrete, and you've minimized the amount of moisture that can get out. So one thing, if you have the ability on the front end, is to try to specify or help them specify a lightly troweled finish. The other side, getting a building enclosed as quickly as possible, getting some form of clean, and when I say clean, I mean dry heat going on in the building, and then airflow across the concrete. There's actually, if you go onto our Wagner Meters YouTube channel, there's actually a pretty good video that we've done that kind of explains the whole process of how to help dry the concrete out faster. Obviously, water to cement ratios has a lot to do with it. Whether it's from the batch plant at a low water to cement ratio, or if you have different kinds of admixtures that you're going to put in there to help with that. But again, having the building enclosed, even if you have a low water to cement ratio, but you keep the building open for a long time prior to getting it, windows and doors and things like that, if there's any kind of rain or any kind of moisture that does get on that slab, it really does act like it's just adding the water back in. If it puddles on the concrete, there is that additional moisture that's getting into that concrete, and it's just like a lot of scientific evidence out there that it's just like starting over again from a drying standpoint. So those are some ways. There are also, from what they say, there are also some different kinds of concrete mixes that are out there and different kinds of concrete admixtures that are out there that will help the concrete to, some people call it self-desiccate, so it will actually dry internally quicker. So anyway, those are a couple of the big ones, but most of the time it's getting the building enclosed, getting good heat going consistently all the time, getting some form of dehumidification in there so that when the moisture does come out of the concrete, it's actually expelled from the environment, and then getting a good amount of air blowing across the surface of the concrete to help pull that moisture out when it gets to the surface. Looks like Malcolm has, what's the highest acceptable RH for a coating on a concrete slab on grade 4 inches thick? Well, I mean, if we're talking from a coating standpoint, I think most coatings, a little backup. So the finished flooring side of things has really embraced relative humidity testing and really moisture testing in general for quite a few years. The coating side of things, the decorative concrete side of things, that niche of the finishes market, in my opinion, has been the last one to the party. Now, in the last couple of years, I've seen some things radically change, and the way I gauge that is based on the amount of discussion and the type of discussions that we have at World of Concrete, because most of the people there are, it's going to be from a coating decorative side of the business as opposed to the finishes side of the other finishes side of the business. That being said, them just now starting in the last few years to embrace relative humidity testing, and again, in some cases, moisture testing at all, most of them are going to the baseline, and the baseline is 75% or less because relative humidity, because they really haven't done any testing or have a lot of experience with what their products will do. And most of it's based on the breathability of their products. Now, if we go to the other types of finishes, like, vinyl and LVT and VCT, stuff like that, you can see some VCTs with premium adhesives that they'll go to 90 or 95% relative humidity. They've proven that the products will do that. They have enough experience and they have enough faith at what their products will do that they will specify them higher. That being said, when they started 10 years ago, 12 years ago, they started at 75% because they didn't have the experience. So it's just going to take a more of a process with the coating side of things, I think, for them to actually show more or higher thresholds of relative humidity. Looks like Katie would love to know more on the Bluetooth option available now. So, because I was trying to keep this not so promotional, but I'll make it a little bit promotional since Katie brought the question up. So what we have out now, so when we started back in 2006 with the Rapid RH, and up until about 2 years ago, everything you had was a self-documentation process. And I say that from the standpoint of you would get the readings, you would write them on a piece of paper, and that was fine. It's still fine. But as time has gone on, we've had people say, hey, you know what? You guys have done a great job with the Rapid RH in the scheme of you drill the hole, you leave the sensor in the hole, you have a metal disc. Once you've made a decision, you have a metal disc that goes over the top of that sensor. It gets skim coated into that floor so that in theory, you could go back and actually prove that the number of tests that you did on a floor does coincide with that actual floor. It's not just something that was made up. But you still have that one piece from a data integrity standpoint that we really couldn't debate, and that was you're dealing with possible human error. People write or have poor penmanship, can't make the numbers out. Sometimes we had people that would write stuff on a piece of paper and then bring it back and they would actually put it into a spreadsheet. And you have multiple times that different people are touching it. Again, you lose the chain of custody on that information sometimes, and the information may not be absolute. So we came up with what's called the Rapid RH Smart Reader, and it works in conjunction with two smart device applications, either iOS or Android. Works on either one. There's a free application. The free application really is just meant to be something that you can use on your device. It gives you bigger display. So for people I used to make fun of that they didn't have long enough arms to be able to read the numbers on our smart reader or on our standard easy reader, it allows them to be able to see because the numbers and the display is bigger. The other side is that with a smart device, you have the ability to have backlighting on it. So when we're in some of these new construction environments where there's no lighting, it makes it a lot easier to use. Now that is the CalMaster. The CalMaster is free, but once you take a reading with the smart reader, the next reading you take makes the first one disappear, so it's not data logging. So The scenario would be you drill the hole, put the sensor in there, wait the 72 hours. You have a smart reader that looks a lot like a thumb drive that you would use in a computer. You take it, you put it down in the sensor. The information is transmitted via Bluetooth to the smart device. It shows up on the screen, and then you can write it down. There's a step up from that. It's called the Data Master. Still works with the smart reader. Process is the same. The great part about it, though, is that prior to taking any readings, you can go into your smart device and put all of the specific information for the job, the address, the slab thickness, the threshold relative humidity that you're shooting for. If you're working on blueprints, you can actually take pictures of the entire blueprint and then put some drop points in there as to where you're placing the different moisture tests, so that when you go to those tests and you take a reading with your smart reader, it transmits the information to your smart device just like it would with the other application. But you have an option that says store, and you hit store, and then it instructs you to which one of those drop points that you have on your picture. Put it there, and it stores all the information. Great part about it is, again, the information is transmitted from the sensor to the device, to storage. You're not touching it. There's no question about data integrity. Before you even leave the job site, a couple of swipes of your device, you can actually generate a report and send it off to your client or your supervisor back at the office, whatever. The application does all of that. So it does that up to and including any of the pictures that you've taken for this specific job. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's what it is. So it's the RapidRH Smart Reader, and it's the CalMaster app is the free one, and then the Data Master app is the one that costs. Looks like Steve's on here. So I'm from Seattle. Plenty of moisture in RH. So for buildings that are still open to the outside, i.e. windows yet to be installed, would it be wise to recommend the contractor finish the windows before the flooring? Well, I guess the way I would put it is this. For you to have an absolutely accurate moisture test, relative humidity test, whether it's with the RapidRH, I mean, really, RapidRH, calcium chloride, or any of the other relative humidity testing devices that are out there, they all follow very specific ASTM standards. Those ASTM standards say that you need to, before you have absolute information to be able to make an installation decision, that you need to have service conditions in the environment that you're testing. And so I guess what I would say to this is that with windows not in, that you don't have service conditions. It may be temperature and relative humidity wise okay for a little bit, but probably at night it drops off, during the day it drops off, or in the mornings it drops off. So that's the stipulation is service conditions. On the other side, I would say that probably if we really got down to it, that any flooring or any adhesive that you would be applying to that environment, if you were to look at the manufacturer's specifications for temperatures and relative humidity on a consistent basis, they would probably say that it wouldn't be appropriate to do it at that point either. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm just saying, answering your question, it would definitely be something where not having windows, not having doors in there is going to lend yourself to potential problems from the standpoint of if rain gets in there, if anything like that does happen, or if it's really open and you don't have any kind of consistent environmental regulation inside the building, it makes it really difficult to make those appropriate decisions. I know that every GC wants to push you guys to do it, but it really ends up being something where it's a long process, but we're trying to educate those GCs that sometimes those aren't the best decisions to push on. Okay, well, it looks like that's all the questions that we have. And definitely, again, if you guys have any other questions at all, don't hesitate to call me. My name is Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961, and it's extension 235. Thanks, and have a great day.